I've always been a defender of a corporation or a company's right to fire someone whose speech violates their terms and conditions, their terms of employment, or if just as a representative of the company, they're out there saying things that don't align with a company's morals or values. Most of the time, what we have seen is that the person is going out there with hate speech, with homophobia, with racism, with misogyny. Usually I think it's racism, right? Hate speech. So I have defended that company's right to fire someone if they're out there not representing the company's morals. What we're seeing here is something completely different. And MAGA, if you're watching, I want you to pay attention because I'm seeing all over social media this morning, liberals were fine with cancel culture when Roseanne and all these other people got canceled. I'm going to talk to you in a minute like a fifth grader in case you don't understand. A company gets to exercise their First Amendment right by saying this employee does not represent my values, therefore I do not wish to employ them. What ABC did is they bowed to pressure from the FCC chairman. His boss is the President of the United States. The President of the United States, after he got Colbert fired, said Kimmel is next.
Fallon has no talent. Kimmel has no talent. They're next. They're going to be going. I hear they're going to be going. I don't know, but I would imagine because they get, Colbert has better ratings than Kimmel or Fallon. You know that.
This was, a month ago? Several weeks ago? He said Kimmel is next. So they were just waiting for something to fire Kimmel over. And just a few days ago, Carr, the FCC chairman, went on a podcast and threatened ABC, you do something about this sick language of his because we don't like how he talked about Charlie Kirk. Not hate speech. We don't like that he said that Charlie Kirk was a MAGA. We don't like that he said the president is turning Charlie Kirk into a martyr. The administration didn't like that and threatened ABC, you do something about that or we will.
There's actions that we can take on licensed broadcasters. And frankly, I think that it's really sort of past time that a lot of these licensed broadcasters themselves push back on Comcast and Disney and say, listen, we are going to preempt. We are not going to run Kimmel anymore until you straighten this out because we licensed broadcaster, are running the possibility of fines or license revocations from the FCC if we continue to run content that ends up being a pattern of news distortion. So I think, again, Disney needs to see some change here, but the individual licensed stations that are taking their content, it's time for them to step up and say, this, garbage, to the extent that that's what comes down the pipe in the future, isn't something that we think serves the needs of our local communities. But this sort of status quo is obviously not acceptable where we are.
That's a threat. That is a threat by the government to tell a company to shut down free expression of speech. So, for those of you who don't understand this and how this is different from Roseanne getting canceled when there was no government pressure to cancel her, let me read you what the First Amendment says. And I've done this before. I've done videos about the First Amendment before. Congress, which also includes the executive, which also includes the president, basically it means the government, shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of speech, the press, or the right of people to peaceably assemble. Congress, the government, the First Amendment says, basically, because the Founding Fathers didn't want fascism in America because they escaped a monarchy, they escaped an authoritarian regime, and they saw that when we get an authoritarian in power who wants to restrict the free speech, who wants to get anybody fired who speaks out against them, then we are no longer a democratic republic. We are an authoritarian dictatorship fascist regime. And this is the difference between Roseanne Barr, what's her name? The Dixie Chicks. I mean, all these There have been people who have been canceled by both Democrats and Republicans throughout history, and they've mostly been canceled by people using their voice and protesting and saying, no, this is not okay, and companies saying, okay, you know what, we hear you, we don't want you to boycott us, or whatever, a company just making that financial decision for themselves to fire somebody or to let a label go or a group go or whatever. That has been pressure by the people. That is a completely different story than pressure by the government. Donald Trump, if he didn't direct ABC to fire Jimmy Kimmel, he allowed his representative, the FCC chairman Carr, he allowed him publicly to threaten ABC. So, I just had a little conversation with somebody on Threads this morning who I've since blocked because they can't hear, because MAGA just can't hear. They can't. So, what that means is Trump is responsible for the people who work for him. So if Trump himself didn't mean to threaten ABC, then he should be firing, or at least calling for the FCC chairman to resign. And he's not. He congratulated. He said that this is good for America, that ABC fired Jimmy Kimmel. He said it was good for America that CBS fired Stephen Colbert, ended the contract, ended the show. This is authoritarianism 101. He is snubbing out voices of dissent. And I hate to break it to you, I feel like Charlie Kirk is a testing ground. I feel like if he had come out and said, ABC, you need to shut down Jimmy Kimmel because he said bad things about me, there might be more of an uproar. But he canonized, he made a martyr out of a racist, misogynist. I'm sorry, but Charlie Kirk is not a good person, and he made a martyr out of him. He convinced the religious right that he was a spokesperson for them, bringing God back. But really what he was doing is using God as a disguise, as a way to spread his racism and his homophobia and his misogyny. But Trump made him a martyr, laid him in state, brought his corpse on Air Force Two, did flew flags at half staff for this guy, this commentator. They never would have done that for a Stephen Colbert. They never would have done that. They didn't do it for Robert Redford, or they wouldn't do it for Jane Fonda. All these progressive activists, they never would have done it for them. But he turned him, I think this is all by design, he turned him into a martyr and then started firing people who spoke out the truth about who Charlie Kirk really is, setting an example. But I think that first, and he's done this with some other things, let's start a little bit over here to see if I can get away with it, and then let's throw that, let's expand it. I'm not pressuring ABC to fire people for speaking out against me, but ABC was pressured to fire someone who said bad things about this religious martyr. And of course, the religious right is going to be like, yeah, see, they're trying to silence us. They're trying to take God out of the country. There's a war on Christianity. They've been selling that lie to Christians for a long time. There's a war on Christianity. And now they're pushing that narrative even further with the death of Charlie Kirk. And when anyone speaks out against Charlie Kirk now, they are just using that as, see, look, there really is a war on Christianity. So the First Amendment does not mean that we as a people can't boycott somebody that we don't agree with so that their contracts get canceled. It doesn't mean that a company can't fire somebody. But what it does mean is the government should not be the one dictating that someone is silenced because they are speaking out against said government. And that is exactly what we have seen. And that is a dangerous, dangerous, slippery slope. So here is what I did this morning. I canceled my Hulu subscription right away. So Hulu, ABC, ESPN, I think I saw. ABC, Hulu, Disney are all owned by the same company. boycott all your ABC shows, cancel your Hulu subscription, cancel your Disney Plus subscription. If you are, belong to any Disney clubs or whatever, cancel them. If you have any plans to go to Disney World, Disneyland, any Disney movies, cancel them. Cancel, because boycotts work. Just look at Target. Target has been losing money since they decided to roll back their DEI. So this is where we are going to have our voice. And if you're feeling scared and helpless, the best and biggest impact we can make right now is by voting with our dollars. And that includes our eyeballs. Because every time we look at a show or a movie, they get ad revenue or whatever they get. Impressions, they get paid by advertisers based on how many impressions they get. So our eyeballs also matter. This is freaking insane. And a lot of people are saying, wow, this is way worse than I thought it would be. No, it's not. It's exactly what I thought it would be. I don't know if I expected it to happen quite so fast, but this is pretty bad. But we all knew. Everybody knew. We knew in 2016 we were going to end up here. One other thing. Trump is not the first president to try to use the FCC to threaten people who speak out against them. Nixon tried to use the FCC to punish CBS for speaking out against him about Watergate and everything. And you know what happened? CBS fought back. The leader of CBS went loud and proud across the media channels or across the news, calling out, this is pressure. We are being pressured to stop criticizing the government. And it worked. They never had to stop reporting the news. I don't understand what the heck is going on now with all of these big, huge companies bowing to this fascist dictator. It's just mind-boggling. They have no backbones. They have no spines. It's disgusting. So not only did Nixon try to use the FCC, Lyndon Johnson leaned on the FCC to discourage stations from airing programs critical of his handling of Vietnam. Ronald Reagan's FCC eliminated the Fairness Doctrine, and we've talked about the Fairness Doctrine here before. It had previously required balanced coverage of controversial issues, but Reagan got rid of that and said, you know what, you don't need balanced coverage, and that's how Fox News has been allowed to thrive. It doesn't have to be balanced anymore. The Fairness Doctrine took that away. So even MSNBC now, they don't have to give both sides of the story. They can just give their version of the news. And George Bush used it. After the Super Bowl wardrobe malfunction, the FCC dramatically increased fines for indecent broadcasts. So Trump is not the first president to lean on the FCC, but he is the first president to succeed because we have lily-dicked... I don't know if that's a word. We have these, nobody has a backbone. Nobody has a spine. It's disgusting. I can't believe it. If anyone is to stand up to Trump, it is these multi-billion-dollar conglomerates who have the platform and the voice to stop it. But instead, they are more worried about profits. They are more worried that they're going to be allowed to stay in business and not get fined than they are about preserving democracy. So it's up to us. Boycott. Cancel Hulu, Disney, and ABC. Don't watch them. I think I'm watching a couple shows on ABC right now, but I'm not going to watch them anymore. We have to vote with our dollar and our eyeballs. All right, let me know what you're thinking below, and I will see you again soon. Thanks for being here. If you enjoy my content, subscribe to my channel, hit the thumbs up, and leave a comment. And share. Share my videos. That also really helps. Hang in there. It's going to be a long fight, but in the end, remember, good always wins, right? Sanity, reason always wins. So hang in there. See you later.